After the Eight Lords decided to secretly launch an assassination operation against the Infinite Snake Ancestor inside Infinite World, Yuan stated that, in order to keep their operation absolutely secret, only the four of them, Starlight, Mo-Man, Luo Feng, and Yuan, could act together. Because they possessed the ability to conceal all fluctuations of energy. Lord Mo-Man then explained that his main battle avatar was currently refining treasures. He had already spent tens of thousands of epochs on the process. And it might still require several hundred to several thousand more epochs before succeeding. Because of this, he asked whether the battle could be postponed. Ming Huang wondered whether the treasure refinement could simply be paused. But Lord Mo-Man explained helplessly that his main battle avatar had to maintain suppression during the refinement process. If it entered the infinite world to fight and left with only 1 or 2/10 of its strength, the treasures being refined would escape. Yuan rejected the idea of waiting, insisting that the battle should be carried out as soon as possible because acting quickly would create a powerful deterrent effect. Starlight agreed, reasoning that the Infinite Snake Ancestor might also be recruiting allies. So the sooner they acted, the better. Luo Feng believed that the three of them should be enough. Starlight looked at him, knowing that although he could see the futures of the other lords, he could not see Luo Feng's future and therefore could not accurately determine Luo Feng's true strength. Yuan ultimately agreed to try with only the three of them. He pointed out that even if they failed this time, they could still search for another opportunity, since the dozens of ancestors could not guard the infinite world forever. Starlight also agreed and proposed that they act at all costs and with the greatest possible speed. Luo Feng, Yuan, and Starlight would immediately descend as avatars beside Luo Feng, allowing Luo Feng to help them recover the strength of their main battle avatars. Luo Feng nodded in agreement. This was the fastest way for them to gather their combat strength. The three of them immediately joined forces and traveled toward the infinite world at the fastest speed possible, sparing no expense in order to arrive quickly. Within the mysterious land known as the Infinite World, the sky stretched vast and boundless while the dark earth extended endlessly. At that moment, ripples formed in the spacetime above the land, and a serpent-shaped creature crossed through them and returned to the Infinite World. Suddenly, a cold voice called out to him. The serpent-shaped creature was startled and turned around, seeing the phantom head of the Infinite Snake Ancestor. It respectfully addressed him as Ancestor. The Infinite Snake Ancestor angrily questioned 13, reminding him that he had long ago issued an order forbidding the Infinite Great Snake Clan from devouring source worlds, at least not becoming the first Ancestor-level beings to do so. Yet only slightly more than 100 million epochs had passed before 13 could no longer restrain himself and violated the prohibition. 13 protested that the infinite great snakes could instantly travel to distant places and return just as quickly. And if they were sufficiently cautious, the lords would have no way to deal with them. He even sneered that the infinite snake ancestor was overestimating the lords, pointing out that in the previous source world, Luo Feng's weak avatar had been destroyed by him with a single fluctuation of energy. The infinite snake ancestor fell silent for a moment before warning him that he had violated a taboo of the lords, and the lords would certainly not let the matter go. If 8 lords joined forces to attack the infinite world, the infinite snake ancestor would have a legitimate reason to summon many ancestors for assistance. However, if the lords did not come to kill him, 13 would have to be careful and protect himself. The infinite snake ancestor did not want to say more. As one of the 9 emperors, he understood that summoning the true bodies of dozens of ancestors would be extremely troublesome. After the previous Great War, many ancestors had hidden their true bodies, while those acting outside were usually only avatars. 13 immediately decided to hide within the infinite world and burrowed into the dark soil. The infinite snake ancestor inwardly sighed that perhaps he had protected the infinite great snakes too much, causing even 13 to dare ignore his warnings. 13 had seriously underestimated the lords and especially Luo Feng. At the highest level of the endless primordial space, even the status of a lord could change rapidly, and more than 100 million epochs had passed since Luo Feng had first become a lord. No one knew what methods Luo Feng might possess now. The infinite snake ancestor therefore remained extremely vigilant and continued sensing the positions of the 8 lords. At that time, many forces were also monitoring the lords' movements. The infinite snake ancestor wondered why the lords had still not acted collectively. While he was worrying about this, 2 days quietly passed. For ancestors, 2 days was an incredibly short period of time, as preparing for a major operation would normally require several hundred epochs. Suddenly, the infinite snake ancestor turned his head in shock and anger. An incomparably sharp blade light had arrived from beyond the heavens, cutting through the world membrane and entering the infinite world. As the controller of the infinite world, the infinite snake ancestor was naturally the first to sense its arrival. He was astonished that the lords had already come, because there had been no warning at all beforehand. Within the infinite world, the 15 ancestor-level infinite great serpents also sensed the arrival of the blade light. When they saw its terrifying sharpness, they instinctively felt fear. The enormous body of the infinite snake ancestor immediately appeared before the blade light, and an incomprehensible amount of power converged upon him. The entire power of the infinite world gathered around its controller. The enhancement was terrifying. When Luo Feng had first become a lord and refined the Blood Crane territory, his strength within that territory could increase by approximately 3 times. The infinite snake ancestor, however, was far stronger than Luo Feng had been at that time, and the infinite world could increase his strength by approximately 5 times. This gave him an immensely terrifying level of power. In the past, the lords had never considered attacking the infinite world precisely because of the overwhelming advantage possessed by its controller within the world. Luo Feng nevertheless launched his attack. With the assistance of Yuan and Starlight, he wielded the Blood Shadow Blade technique, one of the 2 perfected blade techniques that had been developed over hundreds of millions of epochs. Its most terrifying characteristic was its pursuit of the ultimate principle that all things could be cut. The blade light flashed forward with chilling sharpness. The enormous and extremely resilient body of the infinite snake ancestor suddenly disappeared before the blade light, as though it had not encountered any resistance at all. The blade continued toward the distant earth. Realizing that something was wrong, the infinite snake ancestor immediately transmitted a message calling for the inference fire ancestor, the infinite ancestor, and the mother of spacetime to come quickly. At that moment, only those 3 ancestors could arrive in time. Their thoughts immediately descended, and the avatars of the 3 ancestors appeared within the infinite world. The vast power of the infinite world supplied them with strength, rapidly strengthening their avatars, while their life cores were prepared to merge into those bodies at any moment. The infinite snake ancestor transmitted orders to his 15 subordinate great serpent ancestors, telling them that the 3 arriving ancestors needed time to recover their strength. So everyone had to do everything possible to block the attackers. The infinite snake ancestor himself also mobilized the power of the infinite world to stop Luo Feng and the others. However, the void maze was completely useless before Starlight. The various forces formed from the infinite world's power were also unable to stop the blade light. In front of Luo Feng's blood shadow blade, all obstructing forces were divided in 2. The 15 great serpent ancestors desperately tried to stop the attackers, but they were only ordinary ancestors. Their most fatal weakness was that their strengths were too similar, with their methods primarily relying on either void power or infinite power. Because their levels of strength were similar, their cooperative methods were limited, and they could not effectively restrain the attackers. Inference Fire Ancestor angrily roared for them to stop. At that moment, his avatar had already recovered to 50% of its strength. Infinite Ancestor also urged them to stop, saying that the matter could still be discussed. Mother of Spacetime urgently offered to compensate on behalf of the 13 snake ancestors. However, none of these words could stop the attack. The blade light severed every obstacle in its path and effortlessly cut through the layers of soil blocking its way. The 13 snake ancestors were filled with terror and desperately attempted to escape. However, after Starlight arrived in the infinite world, the spacetime of the entire world was affected by his power, making it impossible for the 13 snake ancestors to use spacetime transmission to flee. The blade light flashed past. It passed through the bodies of the 13 snake ancestors, and under the overwhelming fear of death, all 13 of them were instantly killed. Their bodies vanished completely. In the infinite world, the other 14 ancestor-level great serpents were terrified after seeing that even the infinite snake ancestor could not stop the terrifying blade light. They scattered and fled as far away from the 13 snake ancestor as possible, knowing that the lords had come specifically to hunt him and that staying nearby could result in collateral damage. The blade light cut through every obstacle, penetrated deep into the earth, and killed the 13 snake ancestor. The other ancestor-level great serpents were frightened and furious but powerless to stop it. The infinite snake ancestor immediately called them to his side. Those skilled in void power escaped faster, while those skilled in infinite power moved more slowly. The infinite ancestor then released dazzling light and rescued 3 fleeing ancestor-level great serpents. Because the infinite world was so vast, even the infinite ancestor needed several consecutive actions to gather all the ancestor-level great serpents together. The infinite snake ancestor explained that even with his subordinates channeling the power of the infinite world, they had still been slightly inferior to Luo Feng, Yuan, and Starlight. However, the main reason the 13 snake ancestor had been killed so easily was Luo Feng's blade. By transforming into blade light, the 3 lords could move at incredible speed, even distorting spacetime and traversing the infinite world in only 2 breaths. The infinite snake ancestor was helpless against this speed. Inference Fire Ancestor proposed driving Luo Feng, Yuan, and Starlight out, and Mother of Spacetime agreed. All of them had recovered their strength to their peak. With Inference Fire Ancestor, Mother of Spacetime, and the Infinite Ancestor assisting the Infinite Great Snake Clan, the combined use of several supreme powers increased their overall strength by 30 to 40%, giving them enough power to suppress Luo Feng and his 2 companions. Luo Feng, Yuan, and Starlight then appeared and declared that because the 13 snake ancestor had devoured a source world and massacred countless creatures, the 3 lords of the cultivator camp had killed him and would also exterminate more than 300 world-level primordial serpents as a minor punishment. The infinite snake ancestor and the 14 ancestor-level great serpents immediately realized what Luo Feng meant. Most of the infinite great snake clan's world-level primordial serpents were outside the clan territory, exploring and tempering themselves, governing various regions, or undergoing life and death trials. Only slightly more than 300 remained comfortably within the clan's ancestral ground. The infinite world. Therefore, Luo Feng's statement meant that they intended to exterminate every world-level primordial serpent currently inside the infinite world. The infinite snake ancestor urgently tried to stop them, but it was already too late. Luo Feng unleashed the life-cutting blade technique, while Yuan and Starlight simultaneously used their own techniques. Within the infinite world, Luo Feng's life-cutting was affected the least by the environment, while Yuan and Starlight suffered greater interference. Nevertheless, the 3 attacked together, and all more than 300 world-level primordial serpents were silently killed without any ability to resist. Because of the immense distance within the infinite world and the combined interference from the infinite snake ancestor and Mother of Spacetime, Starlight was slightly disadvantaged and could not retrieve the corpses from afar. Luo Feng, Yuan, and Starlight then transformed into blade light and easily sliced through the world membrane as if cutting tofu. Flying out of the infinite world. Outside the infinite world, the 3 lords finally felt somewhat relieved. While inside the infinite world, they had needed to constantly join forces and rely on Yuan's formation to withstand the terrifying power of the entire mysterious land. Yuan was pleased that, despite the infinite snake ancestor and 15 ancestor-level great serpents channeling the power of the infinite world, the 3 of them had still managed to gain a slight advantage. Starlight explained that this was mainly because Luo Feng's blade was powerful enough. Without it, the 3 of them would have struggled even to move within the infinite world, where every step was subjected to overwhelming suppression from the mysterious land's power. By joining forces and transforming into blade light, they were able to cut through the world's power and escape effortlessly. The infinite snake ancestor, Inference Fire Ancestor, Mother of Spacetime, and Infinite Ancestor then pursued them out of the infinite world, radiating boundless power. The furious and humiliated infinite snake ancestor declared that Luo Feng, Yuan, and Starlight ranked among the top 3 strongest existences in the endless primordial space. He accused them of acting shamelessly by entering the infinite world, killing the 13 snake ancestor, and then slaughtering more than 300 world-level primordial serpents like powerful adults bullying the weak. In terms of direct combat strength during the conquest of the destruction world, Luo Feng ranked first, followed by Starlight, Yuan, and Sha Zhou. However, direct combat was not the only measure of their overall abilities. Starlight and Yuan excelled in other areas. Yuan was exceptionally skilled in formations, making his contribution in large-scale wars even greater than Luo Feng's. While Starlight was a master strategist who consistently gained the upper hand. Even in large-scale battles, the corpses of ancestor-level beings usually ended up in Starlight's possession. The outside world generally believed that Luo Feng, Starlight, and Yuan possessed the top 3 overall strengths, forming the foundation for the lords to lead all origin worlds. Luo Feng rejected the accusation that they were bullying the weak, pointing out that the 13 snake ancestors had devoured origin worlds and casually slaughtered countless lifeforms within them. Yuan declared that if the infinite snake ancestor dared to devour origin worlds, they would dare to bully the strong against the weak in return, warning that although they had killed only more than 300 world-level primordial great serpents this time, the number would at least double next time. Starlight added that many high-level primordial great serpents would also be killed. The infinite snake ancestor was enraged because while the deaths of hundreds of millions of high-level primordial great serpents would not concern it, the possibility of completely exterminating its entire clan was terrifying. With Starlight's strength, if he was willing to pay the price, he could potentially kill 99% of the high-level primordial serpent descendants. Luo Feng declared that this was only a warning and suddenly swung his bloodshadow knife. The infinite snake ancestor instantly became completely illusory to evade the attack. Sensing how terrifying the blade was, the blade light then pierced through endless spacetime and split the vast, tough primordial void apart, creating an enormous spatial canyon whose length exceeded that of an entire world cluster. The terrifying blade intent remained engraved in the primordial void for a long time, repeatedly tearing apart the void whenever its natural power attempted to heal the crack. Luo Feng warned all the ancestors who wanted to devour origin worlds to first consider whether they could withstand the price. Yuan was both shocked and delighted by the terrifying blade, while Starlight smiled. The 3 lords then broke through spacetime and departed. The infinite snake ancestor, the flame origin ancestor, the mother of spacetime, and the infinite ancestor continued watching the terrifying blade. While more than 100 ancestor avatars soon gathered around it, they discussed how the infinite world blocked outside observation. But from the conversation they had heard, Luo Feng, Yuan, and Starlight had directly invaded it, killed the 13 snake ancestors, and exterminated more than 300 world-level primordial great serpents before leaving behind the blade as a warning. The ancestors were astonished that the blade had crossed a range greater than an entire world cluster and that its power had not naturally weakened. Cafu too, observing the blade mark, stated that Luo Feng's blade intent contained an endless, indestructible characteristic, while the Hidden One explained that the primordial void's natural ability to heal the crack was constantly opposing the blade intent. The blade intent would eventually weaken, but only over an extremely long period of time. At present, it could still injure ancestors, while in the distant future it would likely only threaten world-level primordial beings. The ancestors agreed that Luo Feng's strength had clearly surpassed that of the previous great battle, explaining why he dared to invade the infinite world alongside Yuan and Starlight. The majority of ancestors consequently abandoned their thoughts of devouring origin worlds. After the battle, the 3 lords had forcibly invaded the infinite world, killed the 13 snake ancestors and more than 300 world-level primordial great serpents, and left behind a terrifying blade strike that intimidated the various factions and discouraged several restless ancestors. Afterward, the lords argued over the complete corpse of the 13 snake ancestor. Jin complained that Yuan always stole or forcibly took resources, claiming that during the past 120 million eras he had taken a great deal. Yuan argued that Jin owed him because he had made great contributions to Jin becoming a lord, while Jin angrily retorted that Yuan had even gone to his residence and openly robbed him when he refused to give him anything. Wolin also criticized Yuan, but Yuan insisted that he had merely gone to borrow treasures and could not possibly have seized them from a lord who was unwilling to give them up. Yuan explained that he genuinely needed the 13 snake ancestors' corpse for his project of creating an origin world, although the lords pointed out that his repeated experiments had always failed. Yuan insisted that this attempt was different because he had prepared the corpses of the Heavenly Eye Ancestor and the Infinite Great Serpent as the foundations, one specializing in soul power and the other in physical strength. Luo Feng and the others were helpless, since each of them owed Yuan a debt for helping them become lords. Starlight proposed following the old rules. And Yuan agreed to leave some of the ancestors' blood and flesh for Naigu while treating unnecessary materials as resources shared by the entire faction. Yuan quickly took the 13 snake ancestors' corpse, leaving only about 2 or 3/10 of the materials behind, and once again began his plan to create an origin world. Jin urged Starlight and the others to control Yuan because he had gone too far. And Mo-Man Lord agreed that Yuan was becoming excessive. Starlight proposed a fair vote among the 7 lords on whether Yuan should be restrained, but suggested that there was no need to act yet. Luo Feng also stated that it was only a few ancestor corpses and some resources, so they could continue observing for the time being. The vote ended with Jin, Naigu, and Mo-Man supporting action, while the other 4 believed it was still too early. Jin, exasperated, warned that their indulgence would only make Yuan increasingly excessive before turning around and leaving. The river of spacetime continued rushing forward endlessly. Within the origin world, one reincarnation era after another passed, and countless cultivators were unable to escape reincarnation, with extremely few surviving into the next era. However, the origin world of the origin continent, Luo Feng's homeland, was extraordinary and did not suffer the calamity of reincarnation. Over the endless years, the origin continent became increasingly prosperous, with powerful experts appearing everywhere. After spending an extremely long time relying on his own efforts, Luo Hai finally arrived at the origin continent and was excited to explore it. Because the suppression of the origin continent's world laws was extremely powerful, he could not fly normally and had to rely on a silver-winged flying treasure. At that moment, Ba Ba Ta suddenly appeared and revealed that he had become one of the 72 deputy governors of the 9th realm of the origin continent. With the governor's token, he could easily teleport anywhere in the origin continent, and Luo Feng had even raised his physical body to the threshold of the God King level. Ba Ba Ta criticized Luo Hai for spending such an incredibly long time merely becoming a true god and said that Luo Feng could have directly raised him to the God King ultimate realm or even the God Emperor level. Luo Hai refused, believing that directly abandoning the path of cultivation was too boring, since his father had become a lord and he was already immortal. He wanted to use infinite time to slowly explore the cultivation path and enjoy the scenery and challenges of every stage. From true god to void true god and eternal true god, rather than relying on his father to directly become a god king or god emperor and then remain stuck at that realm forever. Ba Ba Ta explained that unlike Luo Hai, people such as himself did not have the freedom to choose whatever path they wanted, because Luo Feng's status was too high and he had too many relatives and friends. Ba Ba Ta had only become a deputy governor after waiting through countless people ahead of him. And this was already possible because of his deep relationship with Luo Feng. Luo Feng had even personally helped transform his life form into a God King level life form. By comparison, his former master Huo Yuan Bo had only received some cultivation resources and 3 chances at resurrection, without even having the opportunity to meet Luo Feng alone, and had to rely entirely on himself for cultivation. Ba Ba Ta offered to accompany Luo Hai and provide him with intelligence, warning that the origin continent was filled with hidden experts and dangers. But Luo Hai refused because he wanted to explore it himself and experience the surprises along the way. Ba Ba Ta could only watch him fly away and remarked that Luo Ping and Luo Hai had completely different personalities. Meanwhile, at the core of the Destruction Abyss, within Destruction Mountain, Luo Feng's main battle avatar arrived. He smiled upon realizing that his son Luo Hai had finally become a true god and entered the origin continent. Then looked toward the 7 statues in the distance. For countless years, Luo Feng had repeatedly challenged the 6th statue and lost. Although the gap between them had gradually narrowed, Luo Feng observed that since the Great War, 19 new ancestors had been born. Other ancestors had also improved, and 2 more undying and indestructible existences had appeared. However, the cultivator faction had not produced a new lord, so its overall strength had increased very little. Xing Mang and Mo Man still could not refine the middle-level mysterious land. Yuan was still attempting to create an origin world, and Naigu had improved somewhat. But the cultivator faction as a whole had not undergone any major transformation. In contrast, the number of ancestors in the infinite Hunyuan space continued to increase, and their strength kept rising. The cultivator faction could only experience a qualitative transformation whenever a new lord was born. But producing a new lord was extraordinarily difficult. Luo Feng then approached the sixth statue. A miniature destruction mountain. The Black Mountain awakened, locked onto him, and slowly flew closer until it reached roughly 1/10 the size of the true destruction mountain. When it suddenly accelerated and crashed toward him with terrifying power that distorted and restricted spacetime. Luo Feng did not bother dodging and simply drew his blood shadow knife. His blade light instantly cleaved a crack into the enormous Black Mountain. But the mountain still struck him and sent him flying with severe injuries. Luo Feng continued attacking while being knocked back. Understanding that techniques such as locking down or severing the source of life were useless against the Black Mountain, he had to destroy its powerful body. The Black Mountain repeatedly crashed into him, causing him to suffer severe injuries and lose energy reserves, while Luo Feng continuously recovered to his peak and repeatedly slashed with the blood shadow knife. Some blade lights cleaved through everything and opened cracks. Some entered through the cracks and penetrated deep inside, and others caused terrifying power to erupt within the mountain itself. After enduring countless impacts and striking tens of thousands of times, Luo Feng finally reached the energy core inside the Black Mountain and cut through it. The Black Mountain silently shrank and returned to its original form as a statue. Luo Feng had finally defeated the sixth statue. He had already defeated the fifth statue during the previous large-scale war. And after countless years of slow progress in his blade techniques, he had finally narrowed the gap enough to defeat the sixth statue through sheer accumulation and an intense battle of tens of thousands of strikes. Immediately afterward, an invisible fluctuation enveloped him, and Luo Feng sensed an incomparably vast power that he could freely control. This power was equivalent to the power of the destruction world and was one of the 7 portions of power within the destruction abyss. The rules of the destruction abyss had granted him this power because he had conquered and refined the core of the sixth statue. Luo Feng understood that if he fought the sixth statue again, he would now win much more easily. And he immediately looked toward the seventh statue with anticipation. The seventh statue was a miniature destruction abyss, containing layers of miniature destruction worlds, each with miniature statues representing every ancestor or lord in history who had once occupied a destruction world, including Bafengu, the Hunyuan beast ancestor, Yuan, Xing Mang, Sa Zhu, the Ice Peak ancestor, the infinite ancestor, the infinite snake ancestor, Moshu, and many others. If Luo Feng could defeat this statue, he would control the highest level mysterious land, the destruction abyss. When the seventh statue awakened, 28 miniature figures flew out from within it, representing every powerful existence in history that had occupied a destruction world except Luo Feng himself. Luo Feng was shocked that he had to face 28 opponents alone. But he soon relaxed upon realizing that all 28 were only using the power of destruction rather than their actual bodies and cultivation techniques. Nevertheless, their combined power was comparable to that of roughly 100 ordinary ancestors. If Yuan and the others had truly arrived in person and used Yuan's perfect formation to coordinate their strength, their combined power could have increased several times and easily destroyed Luo Feng. The 28 figures simultaneously attacked, unleashing endless destruction power that locked onto Luo Feng and made evasion impossible. Luo Feng transformed into blade light and tried to redirect the force, but he could barely withstand the attack, and his main battle avatar was immediately reduced to only half of its energy reserves. Realizing that he could not fight the seventh statue, he escaped from Destruction Mountain. After recovering, he returned and found that the statue had already returned to its original position. Although the 28 figures only used the power of destruction, Luo Feng could not withstand facing all of them alone. Unlike an ordinary battle, defeating the seventh statue required a direct confrontation, so his defensive ability had to be strong enough to survive the unavoidable attacks. Luo Feng realized that the seventh statue's test consisted of all the powerful beings who had occupied destruction worlds apart from himself, and that anyone else challenging the seventh statue would probably have to face a statue representing him as well. He therefore went to the nearby mountain and exchanged his 2 destruction fruits for a defensive treasure. 1 destruction fruit could be exchanged for any one of 3,000 weapon-type secret treasures, while 2 destruction fruits could be exchanged for any one of 100 weapon-type secret treasures. Luo Feng chose a black robe secret treasure specialized in defense. The robe flew out from Destruction Mountain and covered his entire body, radiating terrifying destructive power. He regarded the blood shadow knife and the black robe as his two great secret treasures and challenged the seventh statue again. This time, he did not dodge or use weapon techniques, instead choosing to endure the 28 figures' attack directly. The destructive power was greatly weakened by the robe, and only roughly half of the original force reached his protective energy layer. The Blood Crane Domain's power, and the Destruction World's power. Luo Feng was pleased to discover that he lost only about 1% of his energy reserves while enduring the attack. With the two portions of Destruction Abyss power, the Milky Way Domain's power, and the defensive robe assisting him, his physical defense had finally reached a level comparable to that of Wulan. However, when he attempted to fight back, he soon gave up. The seventh statue continuously released an endless flood of destructive power, keeping him under constant attack. Even though his blade light could cut through everything, it could not reach the 28 figures. While his attacks were swallowed by the endless destructive torrent, techniques such as severing the source of life also had no effect on the statues. The gap between the sixth and seventh statues was simply too enormous. And as the experts throughout the infinite Hunyuan space continued to grow stronger, the seventh statue would become even more difficult because it required one person to defeat every other being that had ever occupied a destruction world. Luo Feng believed that controlling the three highest-level mysterious lands would all be extremely difficult. Especially since anyone who wanted to control the destruction abyss before him would have to defeat statues representing a group of powerful beings, including Luo Feng, Yuan, and Xing Mang. Working together, in the years that followed, Luo Feng occasionally returned to Destruction Mountain to fight the seventh statue. Since it was the only opponent capable of completely overwhelming him, during one such battle, he suddenly sensed something and realized that Yuan had succeeded in creating an origin world. In a vast region of void, an enormous origin world appeared. Yuan looked at it with immense satisfaction, as though he were looking at the most perfect treasure in the infinite Hunyuan space and also at a child he had nurtured for endless years. He had invested countless resources and an immense amount of effort into creating it. Luo Feng, Xing Mang, Jin, Ming Huang, Wulan, Moman, and Naigu all sent thoughts into the area and condensed avatars to observe it. The origin world had just been formed and contained no life, while its continents, void, and other structures were still developing. Xing Mang marveled at its mysterious structure, comparing the origin world to a great tree whose roots were the corpses of the Heavenly Eye ancestor and the 13 snake ancestors, which nourished the entire world. Yuan explained that he could not condense the original essence of an origin world directly from the void. So he had used the corpses of those two powerful ancestors as substitutes and painstakingly transformed them into original essence before finally succeeding. He named the new origin world the World Heart Continent, hoping that it would become the center of the countless origin worlds. Yuan then asked the Seven Lords not to interfere when he selected outstanding cultivators from various origin worlds and reincarnated them into the World Heart Continent, because he wanted to compare whether the lifeforms born there would fundamentally differ from those of other origin worlds. The lords agreed, but Luo Feng insisted that there should be a quota because he and the others also spent great effort nurturing talented descendants throughout their territories. Yuan initially proposed a quota of 10,000 cultivators from each territory, but Luo Feng countered with 1,000. After the other lords also agreed that 1,000 was sufficient, Yuan reluctantly accepted the limit, complaining that the seven lords had become increasingly disrespectful toward him. Each lord had different pursuits, some focused on nurturing descendants, some pursued their own cultivation paths, and some refined mysterious lands. Apart from cultivating and challenging the seventh statue, Luo Feng mainly nurtured promising descendants in various origin worlds and often accompanied his wife Xu Xin to explore newly formed origin worlds. In one ordinary origin world, Luo Feng disguised himself as a blacksmith, repeatedly hammering a blade blank until it gradually took shape. Although the process appeared simple, the material within the blade was undergoing transformation from ordinary matter into a divine weapon. Xu Xin sat nearby drinking fruit tea and urged him to stop blacksmithing and try some interesting drinks she had discovered. Having lived for an endless amount of time and visited countless origin worlds, Xu Xin now enjoyed searching for delicious food, interesting drinks, and beautiful scenery. Luo Feng finished forging the blade, though he was not satisfied with the result, and then joined her to drink the fruit tea. Suddenly, Luo Feng sensed something in the distance and projected the scene before them. His son Luo Hai, wearing silver robes and carrying a saber, was fighting an opponent in the distance. Xu Xin explained that she had remained in this origin world for a long time because Luo Hai was currently training and adventuring there. Luo Hai eventually drew his saber and killed his opponent with a single strike. Then became acquainted with a white-robed young man named Dong Bo Shui Ying. Luo Hai introduced himself and, after recognizing the other man as a friend, openly suggested that they treat each other as brothers. Dong Bo Shui Ying agreed and addressed him as brother Luo Hai. Luo Feng and Xu Xin watched their interaction from afar. Xu Xin wondered why Luo Feng paid such close attention to Luo Hai merely making a new friend. And Luo Feng explained that Dong Bo Shui Ying was an exceptionally talented cultivator within that origin world. Based on his understanding of the possibilities within the various cages of the infinite Hunyuan space, Luo Feng believed that Dong Bo Shui Ying should be able to reach the God King ultimate realm and might even possess a slight possibility of breaking out of his cage.